I got on underwear older than you.
You should really change your underwear.
He just told a grown man his underwear needs changing, on camera, to his face.
I'm leaving here with something. You know what I mean? I'm from around the way. I'm leaving with something. Then my mother told me to get the flower arrangement.
He lost. He had nothing to show for it. So he stole the flowers off a table because his mom said so.
Mr. Washington. I have a question.
Wait a minute.
Do you do all your own stunts?
His own children pranking him on a red carpet, and he had no idea it was coming. But here's what your brain is actually doing to you when you watch this man talk. You're not laughing because Denzel Washington said something objectively hilarious. You're laughing because your brain just got broken in a very specific, very satisfying way. And once you understand the mechanism behind it, you'll never watch one of his interviews the same way again. Here's the thing about Denzel Washington that almost nobody talks about. We've spent 40 years building this image of him in our heads. The intense stare, the slow burn monologues, the characters who could end a man with a single sentence and a long pause. Training Day, American Gangster, Malcolm X. We don't think of Denzel as funny. We think of Denzel as terrifying. And that's exactly why what happens in these interviews hits your brain like a small explosion. Psychologists call this incongruity theory. It's one of the oldest explanations for why humans laugh at all. Your brain builds a prediction based on everything it's seen before about what's about to happen. And when reality violates that prediction in a harmless, low-stakes way, your brain doesn't know what else to do with that mismatch, except release it as laughter. It's basically your nervous system going, wait, that's not supposed to happen, and converting the confusion into a giggle before you've even consciously processed it. And Denzel Washington might be the single greatest living example of this effect in all of pop culture. Because the gap between the guy who played Alonzo Harris and the guy who just told a reporter to change his underwear is so massive that your brain genuinely cannot process it as anything other than comedy. Let's start at the very beginning of that gap. Let's talk about the audition story.
I haven't auditioned for a movie in
40.
I don't know if it's 40 exactly. I won an Academy Award in 1989.
That's
How many
right.
years ago is that?
So that would be 35?
I'm sure that
correct?
nobody asked me to audition after
That's
that.
great!
On paper, this is just a guy stating a fact. He hasn't auditioned in decades. Fine, normal, expected, even, for a two-time Academy Award winner. But notice what happens next. The interviewer asks if he misses it.
I mean, do you miss that?
Auditioning?
Yeah.
No.
That's it. That's the whole joke. Yeah. No. 2 words. No setup, no punchline structure, nothing a comedy writer would ever put on a page. And it's funnier than half the material in most stand-up specials. Why? Because your brain was bracing for either a heartfelt answer or a humble brag. Instead, it got a flat, almost robotic non-answer that somehow communicates an entire emotional journey in less than a second. Your brain processes, yeah, no, faster than it can build a prediction for what comes after it. And that speed is exactly what makes it funny. There's no time to brace yourself. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because immediately after establishing that Denzel Washington is essentially Hollywood royalty untouchable, beyond auditions, beyond the grind that defines every other actor's career, he does something that completely shatters that image. He admits, on camera, that he's lost.
2 Oscars, 2 of them.
But I lost 8 times.
Yes, you have lost more than you won. Yeah. That's the first time.
I lost 8 times.
Stop and think about how rare this is. Public figures, especially actors at this level, are professionally trained to spin everything into a win. I'm grateful for every nomination. It's an honor just to be considered. That's the script everyone follows. Denzel just didn't. He repeated the losing number twice, out loud, on camera. And the reason that's funny instead of sad is because of something psychologists call benign violation, a concept that basically says humor happens when something feels like it should be uncomfortable, but isn't, because the person delivering it clearly isn't bothered by it either. If Denzel looked embarrassed saying, "I lost 8 times," we wouldn't laugh. We'd feel awkward for him. But because he says it the way you'd say, "Yeah, I had cereal for breakfast," your brain registers 0 threat, 0 tension, and the only thing left to do with that information is find it funny. And then he takes that loss and turns it into one of the most quietly chaotic stories you'll ever hear a grown man tell about himself.
He comes out to present an award and got a 3-minute standing ovation for presenting an award. Wow. I went to get the coats. I was gonna get the coats because I know I ain't winning tonight.
Picture this scene for a second. You're at the Oscars, one of the biggest nights of your career, a nominee, and Sean Connery just walking out to present an award, not even win one, gets a 3-minute standing ovation. 3 minutes. That's an eternity in award show time. And Denzel's internal monologue in that moment isn't, wow, what an icon, or I hope I get that kind of respect someday. It's, well, I'm not winning tonight. Might as well go get my coat. That's the joke. The scale mismatch. The biggest night of his professional life, and his brain quietly downgrades the whole evening to coat retrieval logistics. And it gets better because he doesn't stop there.
I see a big tray. I'm like, I'm leaving here with something. You know what I mean? I'm from around the way. I'm leaving with something. Then my mother told me to get the flower arrangement.
So now we've gone from I'm leaving without an Oscar to I am leaving this 5-star A-list black tie event with a centerpiece flower arrangement under my arm because my mother told me to. There is no version of that sentence that doesn't sound completely insane out of context. And that's exactly why it's funny your brain cannot reconcile Academy Award nominee at the governor's ball with guy taking the flowers because mom said so. Those two images do not belong in the same universe. And yet, here they are, both true, both delivered with total sincerity. This is the pattern, over and over again. Denzel Washington says something with the complete emotional neutrality of a man ordering a sandwich, and the content of what he's saying is somewhere between mildly chaotic and should not be legal at this event. And your brain, trying to reconcile his expression with his words, just short circuits into laughter. Now here's where the theme starts to deepen, because it's not just about what he says, it's about what he does. Because apparently, this energy doesn't stay contained to award shows. It follows him everywhere, including, apparently, onto the street, mid-interview, where he decided to fully commit to a bit that nobody asked for.
I'm getting robbed by Denzel right now.
Hey, you know, that watch is gone, you know that, right?
You can take him out of New York, you can't take the New York out of him.
Think about what's actually happening here from the interviewer's perspective. You're doing a normal press junket, standard questions, and suddenly the most intimidating actor of his generation, the man who played some of cinema's coldest villains, looks at your watch and starts narrating a robbery in real time, in character, with zero transition. There's no, haha, watch out, I might steal that, softening. He just becomes a guy stealing your watch, mid-sentence.
I hope it doesn't fit. I hope it doesn't fit.
Really robbed me for my motherfucking watch. Yo.
Nah, I didn't, man. You gave it to me. We got witnesses. It's all on film. You gave me this. I'll rob you later.
And he doesn't drop the bit. He doubles down. He's now claiming there's footage proving the watch was a gift, despite having narrated stealing it literal seconds earlier. This is what's called commitment escalation in comedy. The longer someone stays in a bit without breaking, the funnier it gets, because your brain keeps expecting the wink, the just kidding, the exit ramp, and Denzel never takes it. He just keeps building the fictional crime scene like it's the most natural conversation in the world. And then, just to put a cherry on top of the whole exchange, he hits you with the most disarming pivot possible.
I ain't got no money. I got jokes. Put me in the movie. I got...
From robbery to job application in under 5 seconds. That whiplash from menace to humility to comedy happening that fast is genuinely rare even among professional comedians. Most people need a beat to transition between emotional registers. Denzel just doesn't. His brain apparently moves between intimidating and goofy, the way most of us switch between browser tabs. Now, you might be thinking, okay, this is just one guy who happens to be naturally funny? Lots of celebrities are funny in interviews? What makes Denzel different? Here's the answer, and it's the core of everything. Denzel Washington doesn't perform comedy. He performs total emotional honesty, and the honesty itself is what reads as comedy. That's a completely different skill. And it's why even other celebrities, people who are famous, accomplished, used to being in the spotlight, completely lose it around him. Take his own children, for example.
Mr. Washington. I have a question.
Wait a minute.
Do you do all your own stunts?
Got my 2 sons.
His son set up an elaborate prank involving another celebrity, got it filmed, and arranged for it to be shown back to him on camera. And Denzel's reaction isn't anger, isn't even mock anger. It's just calm, weary recognition. Got my 2 sons? Like he's seen this exact move before. Like this is Tuesday in the Washington household. There's an entire unspoken history in those 3 words. Years of inside jokes, years of his kids knowing exactly how to get him, years of Denzel pretending to be surprised when he absolutely isn't. And then because apparently the universe loves symmetry, he gets the chance to deliver the exact same energy right back, except this time with actual emotional stakes.
Like now that the kids are, as you say, mostly out of the house. So what is that like? It's a transition. I mean,
I tell you what, there's a difference between a home and a house.
yeah. Yep.
When your kids leave, it's just a house again.
That's right.
It's not a home.
Yeah.
So it's great.
On the surface, this sounds like it's building towards something sentimental. I miss my kids, the house feels empty. And then he just pivots into, and that's great, actually. The crowd laughs because they were emotionally primed for one thing and got the complete opposite, delivered with total sincerity. This is incongruity theory again, but layered your brain built an emotional prediction and a content prediction, and both got subverted simultaneously. That's a much bigger violation for your brain to process, which is why the laugh is bigger too. This is also, by the way, the moment that reveals something deeper about why we find Denzel so compelling in these interviews. We're watching a 7-0-year-old man, a global icon, 2-time Oscar winner, certified Hollywood royalty talk about his kids moving out the exact same way your uncle would at a barbecue. No filter, no PR polish, just a dad being a dad. Except this dad also played Malcolm X. And speaking of that gap between icon and person, let's talk about what happens when Denzel meets other icons. Because apparently, fame doesn't exempt you from being the funny one in the room. Sometimes it just changes who's laughing at who.
I was at the Chicago Bulls game with Spike Lee. When Michael Jordan made that famous shot. I was there. And we went out to dinner that night afterwards. And he's famous. I was doing security work. Michael Jordan's famous.
He just casually mentioned being courtside for one of the most replayed shots in basketball history, then immediately undercut his own significance by joking about doing security work while Michael Jordan did quota. Michael Jordan's famous. It's self-deprecation used as a comedic tool, and it works because Denzel Washington has nothing to prove. He doesn't need you to know he was important in that room, so he makes himself the punchline instead, which paradoxically makes him more magnetic, not less. But the story doesn't end there, because then he tried to do something that, frankly, every single person watching has wanted to do to someone they admire.
I went out
After
and
that game?
after that game, and because the next game they were coming to LA to play. And I was trying to get him drunk, trying to get him off the field.
That's a Lakers fan, yeah. You can take him out.
Didn't work,
But it didn't work? Did you buy him shots? Did he drink?
He acted like he would put it to his lip and then put it back down.
Oh, very interesting. So maybe he's the greatest of all time.
He was that night.
Read that again. A 2-time Academy Award winner admits, on camera, decades later, that he tried to get Michael Jordan drunk after a game and failed because Jordan was smart enough to fake drinking the shots. And then Denzel's conclusion from this entire story isn't, wow, Jordan's disciplined, it's maybe that's why he's the greatest of all time. The logic makes no sense. The connection between faking shots at dinner and greatest basketball player ever is completely absurd. But it's delivered with such conviction that your brain just accepts it. For a second, you actually consider whether drink-faking skills are a legitimate component of basketball greatness. That's the power of confident delivery. It can make your brain temporarily suspend its own logic, just to keep up. This is actually a really important point about why these moments go viral. It's not just that Denzel says funny things, it's that he says them with total confidence, regardless of how absurd the actual content is. And confidence, psychologically, is one of the most contagious things a human being can display. When someone delivers an insane statement with zero hesitation, your brain's default assumption is this person clearly knows something I don't, and that momentary uncertainty, that tiny crack in your own confidence, is what makes you laugh. You're laughing partly at the absurdity, and partly at your own brain's brief willingness to believe it. Now let's go even bigger. Because so far we've talked about basketball legends and family dynamics. But what happens when this energy gets pointed at one of the most respected human beings on the planet?
I had breakfast with Archbishop Desmond Tutu and lunch with Nelson Mandela. So he meets me and my wife, and he immediately says to her, "Oh, I see why he's the success that he has because of you. Everything was because of her." And she's just like, and of course I'm like, he's an operator.
Let that sink in for a second. Denzel Washington, a man who has met presidents, royalty, and basically every major cultural figure of the last 40 years, has breakfast with Desmond Tutu and lunch with Nelson Mandela in the same day. That's already an insane sentence. But the punchline of the story isn't about meeting Mandela. It's about Mandela essentially charming Denzel's wife right in front of him, crediting her for his success, and Denzel's only defense being to call one of the most universally beloved humanitarians in history an operator.
I'm like, okay, you know, I did a few things, Nelson, but you know. No.
This is the emotional climax of the bit, and it works because of scale. We're talking about Nelson Mandela here, a man who spent 27 years in prison and then helped dismantle apartheid and became one of the most morally significant figures of the 20th century. And the story Denzel chooses to tell about him is that he made Denzel feel slightly insecure about his own marriage for 30 seconds. The reverence we'd normally expect when discussing Mandela gets completely flattened into a small, relatable, almost petty human moment. This incredibly famous guy made me feel like the less impressive spouse, briefly. And because Denzel delivers the punchline, "I'm unemployed now," with the exact deadpan cadence of a man genuinely reevaluating his career, your brain processes the absurdity of comparing himself to Nelson Mandela on equal emotional footing, and the gap between those two scales is where the laugh lives. This pattern, taking something enormous and important and reducing it to something small and petty for comedic effect, is actually a technique comedians spend years trying to master. It's called scale mismatch humor, and it's incredibly hard to do naturally, because it requires not being impressed by things that are objectively impressive. Most people, when name-dropping Nelson Mandela, would lean into the prestige. Denzel leans away from it, toward the human. Slightly insecure, completely relatable feeling of, this legend just made me feel like the less important person in my own marriage. And that contrast between the size of the name and the size of the emotion is what makes it Len. Now, here's where this theme takes its most surprising turn yet. Because it's one thing to be funny when you're talking about other people. It's a completely different thing to be funny when the joke is at the expense of someone you helped, someone whose entire career, arguably, exists partly because of you.
From Chadwick Boseman himself, that you in some way are actually responsible for him being Black Panther.
Am I?
Yeah, he said.
Oh, because I paid for him to go to school?
How did that come about?
I didn't know him. Felicia Richard. I'm gonna screw this story up, but Felicia Richard was helping kids, and she called different people, and she called me, and I said, "Yeah, I'll sponsor wherever." And she said, "Well, you're sponsoring," or he called to thank me. That's how I found out it was him. You're sponsoring this kid, some Chaz McBoseman guy. And I said, "Yeah, okay, Chad. I want my money back."
This story requires a moment, because there's something happening underneath the joke that makes it land so much harder than it would otherwise. Denzel quietly, anonymously, paid for a young actor's education through a program not knowing, not even particularly caring, who that kid would become. He didn't do it for credit. He did it through someone else, without even getting the name right at first. Chaz McBoseman. And the kid grew up to become Chadwick Boseman, Black Panther, one of the most beloved performances in modern cinema, by an actor whose death a few years later would leave the entire world genuinely heartbroken. And what does Denzel do with that story? He doesn't make it about his own generosity. He doesn't frame it as a heartwarming moment of mentorship, even though it absolutely was one. He makes the punchline about wanting his money back.
I went to the premiere for Black Panther here in New York, and I saw Ryan Coogler and Chad. And he said, "Oh, I just wanted to thank you for paying." I said, "Yeah, that's why I'm here. I'm not here. I'm not here to see that. I'm not here. I like the movie Black Panther. Yeah, good. Wakanda forever, but where's my money?"
Wakanda forever. But where's my money? Say that sentence slowly. It's simultaneously one of the funniest things you'll hear all week. And if you know how the Boseman story ends, one of the most quietly devastating, because underneath the joke is a genuinely beautiful truth. Denzel Washington helped create the circumstances for one of the most important roles in modern film history, asked for nothing in return, And the only way he's comfortable acknowledging that generosity, even now, is by turning it into a bit about a loan he never intends to collect on. This is, honestly, the deepest layer of why Denzel Washington is funny without trying. It's not a performance, it's armor. It's a way of being deeply, sincerely kind, generous, supportive, emotionally present, without ever having to sit in the discomfort of being seen as deeply, sincerely kind. The joke isn't covering up something fake. The joke is covering up something real. Because for a man of his generation, in his position, openly admitting, "I did something nice and I'm proud of it," feels more vulnerable than admitting he lost 8 Oscars. And that brings us to maybe the single most revealing exchange in this entire collection. The moment where Denzel Washington, completely unintentionally, explains the exact mechanism behind everything we've just talked about.